Welcome, everyone, to today's Global Hub Salon on Sustainable Agri-Food Systems and Development. Today's series is a part of Global Cornell's Global Hubs strategy of leading partnerships with universities all across the world. And on behalf of Wendy Wolford, the Vice Provost for International Affairs, and myself, Rachel Beatty-Riedel, the Director of the Einaudi Center for International Studies, we are especially pleased to be welcoming panelists from all of our Global Hub partners here with us today. This Salon series is an opportunity for us to bring together leading experts on key themes, from all different types of themes. And we've been having this Salon series throughout the semester with different types of topics, from future cities to inequalities to big data, media, and AI. And today we're really able to dig into agricultural expertise and development expertise across all of our university partners to take on some of the biggest questions of our time. I want to thank all of our panelists for being here to help us start this conversation, and all of our audience members for listening in. I also want to invite our audience members to share your questions, your ideas, your reactions, your own research centers and project links in the Q&A function, and we will use those to further the conversation after we've gone through each of our panelists' introductions in order to continue this discussion and allow for the engagement of our audience. And we'll use the questions and conversations that we posed today as a springboard for next steps of potential collaborations as we launch this thematic topic with all of our collaborators from across the globe. I want to be brief here so that we can move to each of our experts, but I'm just going to briefly explain the charge that we've given to each of our panelists, which is to do three things. First is to briefly introduce their own work, what types of leading research they're engaged in. The second is to share information about other initiatives, groups, centers at their home universities that are related to the topic and ripe for collaboration, so we can learn about what is happening in each of these institutions. And third, and perhaps the most interesting, is to engage in a thought experiment addressing the question, what is the future of this research agenda that could be facilitated by an interdisciplinary, multilateral research collaboration? How can this conversation of leading scholars meaningfully move us forward to take up next generation questions in this thematic area? So with that, I want to give a warm welcome to each of our panelists and a big thanks. And we'll start today with Chris Barrett from Cornell University.
Thanks very much, Rachel. It's a pleasure to be with you all today, and I really look forward to hearing from my colleagues on this panel. I and my colleague from Cornell, Marina Welker, who we're bookending these presentations, she will go last, I go first. We represent a range of strengths at Cornell University in this general area of sustainable agri-food systems and development. Cornell has a wide range of faculty in the natural and social sciences, ranging in expertise from upstream biophysical factors like atmospheric and soil sciences to downstream more human issues like firm and consumer behavior rooted in psychology, economics, and communications. We also have a very far-flung network of quite distinguished alumni working in this space all over the globe. My own research group, I'm an economist. We focus on using the quantitative toolkits of economics, often in partnership with scholars from other disciplines and partners at other institutions and countries, to focus on how we can reduce unnecessary human suffering. So this is ultimately a progressive agenda in both senses of that term. We champion science-based innovation to enable progress, but we also embrace a preferential option for the poor in all of our research. Among our current projects, we have work on risk management through financial innovations, things like index-based livestock insurance, a product my group helped develop and scale for drought risk management in dry lands in Africa, to humanitarian response to food emergencies, advances in food assistance policies and therapeutic food formulations, to longer-term issues concerning the natural resource base on which agricultural productivity and rural livelihoods depend. Some of that work involves, for example, work with parasitologists and ecologists right now on integrating infectious disease control and agricultural development in Senegal. But I want to focus on one activity in particular that was hosted by the Cornell Atkinson Center for Sustainability, a research and outreach group here at Cornell, Atkinson convened the 2020 Nature Sustainability Expert Panel on Innovations in Agri-Food Systems. That resulted in a volume of report published online in December 2020 on the Nature and Nature Sustainability websites as a report. And that was just released as an open access book last month. I'll put the link in the chat in a moment. But that initiative, which explained the pipeline of new innovations, policy, institutional, as well as hard technology innovations that are coming down the pike to help facilitate agri-food systems transformation, that has helped to spark a new initiative by UN FAO. In October, at the next World Food Day, the FAO chief scientist will announce the initiation of a new agri-food system science, technology, and innovations portal, and a new flagship publication, the Agri-Food Systems Technologies and Innovation Outlook. A group of us here at Cornell have led the scoping study for that ATIO, as it's being called, and that's going to be an enormous integrative effort at documenting and assessing and helping to diffuse and adapt innovations throughout agri-food systems with a focus on low and middle income countries. It's necessarily going to be organized as a consortium. So if any of your institutions are interested in this, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be very happy to carry on a conversation. Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing from the rest.
Thank you, Chris. Wonderful. And next we'll move to Kevin Chen from Zhejiang University.
Well, thank you, Rachel. I do have a few slides I'd like to share, so let me bring up my slides here. I hope you can see my slides.
Yes, very good. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here to join you with such a distinguished panel on the Cornell University's Salon on Sustainable Agri-Food System and Development. And I'm from Zhejiang University, and the Zhejiang University is one of the most comprehensive university. And in the sense, we have all the disciplines which need to study the agri-food system. And this is the one of conference we had last year, and we gathering together with the 30+ university globally, and to promote the role of universities in the United Nations 2030 agenda. And so in the left-hand picture is our president, Dr. Wu Chaohui, and talking on that particular forum to see what Zhejiang University can do to promote the 2030 agendas. And I'm only going to talk about what kind of research we did related to food system at China's Academy for Rural Study at Zhejiang University. With the 3 minutes, I cannot cover all the research done at the university level. But one thing I want to mention is we launched Food Systems and Policy Lab at Zhejiang University in 2019. And we teamed together with the International Food Policy Research Institute based in Washington, Purdue University, and the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research. And we look at a couple of key issues related to the food systems. One is certainly the transformation drivers, and we particularly look at agri-food value chain development, pay particular attention to the digital technology, and we study the consumer food behavior, and we look at particularly build the food system modeling. And we also offer 2 courses. One is the Global Food System and Policy, and we're going to offer a new course on the SDG course on the inclusive growth, which is going to be offered for the first time in the summer in 2020s. Also starting 2022, and we're going to start a new partnership between the Zhejiang University and with the CGIAR on one of their global initiative called Low Carbon Food Systems. And for those of you who are not familiar with the GIAR, that's the Global Agricultural Research Institute. And sometimes I refer that as the World Academy of Agricultural Science for people to understand what a CGIAR does. And so now they have 33 plus research initiative. One of that is on climate change and mitigation, and which is co-led by SEAT and IFPRI. And we have that particular project has 7 target countries: Bangladesh, China, Colombia, Ethiopia, Kenya, Peru, and Vietnam. And it has 5 work packages: and food system transformation, data evidence and tools for transformation, living lab for mitigation, and scaling low emission food system, and policy engagement. Those are the 5 areas of this particular project that you're going to work on. And we also carry out a number of other research projects. I don't think I have time to read out all the projects, but probably very quickly, we look at a number of domains of agri-food system and policy. One of the new issues we particularly look at is whether China needs a dietary revolution to deal with the food security, to deal with the carbon emission, and to deal with the economic growth issue, and to deal with health issues. And we also look at some global issues. For example, China now becomes the largest soybean and beef importer from Brazil. Brazil becomes the largest soybean exporter and beef exporter. So what does that mean for the mitigation carbon emissions globally? So we want to look at those issues. In particularly, we look at developing inclusive food system in China, because starting last year, China put a big push on building so-called common prosperity. And so that's placed a tremendous emphasis on developing the inclusive food system. So inclusive food system is going to play a critical role on that, in particular because Zhejiang University is based in the province of Zhejiang, which is the roots for the digital technology, particularly for the agriculture sector. Alibaba is here, and Pinduoduo's Dong, the founder, is also in Hangzhou as well. So we particularly look at the digital technology, e-commerce for transforming food system in China and the global south. So with that, we're very much looking forward to collaborate with the partners in this group. So thank you again for the Global Cornell, the Salon on particularly on sustainable agri-food system and development. We're looking forward to the future collaborations. Thank you. Back to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chen. Very interesting. Next, we'll go to Dr. Peter Alexander from the University of Edinburgh.
Hi, thanks very much, and thanks for inviting me. Yeah, no slides for me, so I'll try and keep it reasonably brief. I'll start with just talking about my kind of area of research and my sort of group's area of research, which is really looking at modeling of the global food system and land use. So we're trying to think about here, you know, the interactions between human and natural processes. So we kind of look at how environmental change is driving land use and how that, you know, involves dietary shifts, feedbacks, and international trade, and how that kind of has consequences for the environment. So some recent papers have, for example, looked at how protected areas, you know, half Earth type protection would have an impact on human health through increased food prices, leading to changes in diet and changes in malnourishment, as well as reductions in obesity. So that was in Nature Sustainability, just as an example. And we looked at sort of the reverse, where we looked at how dietary changes impacted environmental outcomes. Also, the modelling that we've been doing has been looking at shocks, so different types of shocks. So, for example, geopolitical shocks, and the obvious example at the moment would obviously be the war in Ukraine, which is something we have yet to sort of publish on, but we're working on that. And we've got a paper just coming out, slightly kind of ironic, I suppose, in a way, on COVID and the recovery paths from COVID, that's going to come out in Lancet Planetary Health, which was accepted relatively recently, so it's not yet published. But kind of using these models to, as well as to think about the feedbacks between these different, health, diet, environment, etc., on a global scale. Thinking about shocks to that system and how those shocks play through the system. Anyway, so that's the kind of the broadly speaking, the research that myself have been working on. I was also a lead author for the recent IPCC Working Group 2 report, the adaptation part of AR6. So to move on to the other two questions, tough gig in 3 minutes this. So there's lots of different organizations within the University of Edinburgh. There's the Global Academy of Agriculture and Food Systems, which tries to bring in researchers and academics across the university who are working on this topic, which is everybody, I suppose will say the same thing, is sort of very diverse and multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. I actually sit kind of partly within that sort of Global Academy, is also within the School of Geosciences, and we've got a large range of projects from different funders working in this area. In the last sort of 10 seconds to talk about kind of the last point of the agenda, I think one of the gaps, we're thinking about the IPCC process for a second, obviously we've got working groups looking at mitigation, we've got working groups looking at adaptation, but actually that and the literature does tend to create sort of a gap about how measures to adapt to climate change and measures to mitigate climate change potentially are counteracting each other, as well as potential sort of synergies between them. So I think that's an area that's sort of looking more holistically at adaptation and mitigation of climate change is something that's under researched at the moment. Somewhat of a gap. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alexander. Wonderful. Next, we'll move to Dr. Chaleeda Borompichaichartkul at Chulalongkorn University. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and thank for the invitations to participate the Salon on Sustainable Agri-Food Systems and Development. Well, I am an associate professor in Department of Food Technology, Faculty of Science, Chulalongkorn University is in Bangkok, Thailand. Well, as the food technologist, my main research interests apply research on drying technology, functional food process and developments, as well as the food process developments that extended to one particular material that I interest is called konjac glucomannan. So I'm interested in its processing and the application for functional ingredients and foods. In my research, about konjac glucomannan, we include physical and chemical properties of konjac glucomannan, microencapsulation process, functional films, as well as product developments using konjac glucomannan as the materials. I also work closely with food SMEs, entrepreneurs, and industry on research and developments. Konjac glucomannan actually is dietary fibers, and it has been a lot of medical studies on its qualities and properties that can be a part as the functional food and for functional ingredients as well. Back to the university, at Chulalongkorn University, I also chair platform for designing and developing food for well-being. This platform aims to tackle health concerns or health problems related to foods, lifestyles in the focus area. We want to make the maximum utilization of our local ingredients and turn that into functional food, functional ingredients with known process and stabilities that we can contribute our outputs of our research to both SME, community, business, and food industries. Well, the visions of this platform is Center for Designing and Developing Food for Well-being. We can engineer food for a healthy society. The mission of our platforms are first, research and developments in functional food and ingredients from farm to tables. Second, functional food and ingredient process and their stability should be known. Right now, the focus is on functional food for non-communicable disease, or as we know in short is NCD. There are 4 groups in our platform. First is raw material designs. Second is food function processing and stabilities. Third is functionals, property evaluations and analysis. And fourth is community linkage. So all those outputs should be back to the communities and the societies. So we hope we can make our platform to collaborate with global partners, as well to engineer food to make a healthy societies. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll go to Dr. Lydia Chabala from the University of Zambia.
Let me share my screen. You can see it?
Very good, thank you.
Okay, great. So I am from University of Zambia. I am serving as Assistant Dean for research in the School of Agricultural Sciences. And my background is in agronomy, and specifically I look at soil science, soil mapping, and land suitability analysis. And one of the work that I've done was I was an expert, the immediate past member of the Intergovernmental Panel for Soil Experts. I think our term is ending about next month. Some of my research focus areas as an individual, I have looked at soil carbon dynamics in livestock integrated land use systems. And some of the things that we found, for example, in an arid environment, the graph there, which is separate from the 2 maps, showed like clear interaction between water deficit and livestock stocking density, indicating that there is really a critical balance that has to be sought in arid environments. Other work that I have done referred to land suitability analysis for selected crops, as well as soil mapping. So the other 2 figures I show, they are maps. The middle one is a map of soybean suitability for a district here in Zambia. And another one is the other map covering, that is my country. That is the irrigated paddy rice suitability. Now, what about other research areas that you could contact here at UNZA? There are groups, researchers working on food science and nutrition, and they're looking at things like sustainable diet, food processing, product development, and so on. There is work that is being done in the area of animal science. Here, they are looking at livestock feed. These are active research areas, feed formulation, aquaculture, and also there is work that relates to agriculture economics and extension, where they are looking at, are the more wealthy people more likely to implement sustainable food production systems? There were 2 questions that we were asked to look at, and I have a few answers to them. The first one is, what is the future of this research agenda? I think given that, for instance, us here in Africa, the population is expected to double by 2050, we will need sustainable intensification of food production. After all, people have to eat, even if they say agriculture contributes to climate change. But food comes first, so we must work on sustainable intensification of food production system. An area close to my heart is soil pollution. It affects everyone. If we have polluted soils from masks, from pesticides, from many other things, soils are living, so we must work on that. And lastly, what should be the conversation? I think as researchers, we have a triple challenge there. We must look at adapting to climate change. We must look at sustainable intensification, and lastly, we must look at preserving of natural resources. So really, those were the few points I had, and thank you for inviting me. I look forward to possible collaborations within the network. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chabala. Next, we'll go to Dr. Wenfeng Cong from China Agricultural University.
Thank you, Rachel. I have also prepared a few slides I would like to share right now. Yes, I hope you can see it right now. So can you see it?
Very good, thank you.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Wenfeng. I'm from China Agricultural University. So thank you very much for inviting me to join this Sustainable Agri-Food System and Development Salon. So today, the topic of mine is to innovate sustainable cropping systems for sustainable agri-food system in China. A few slides for the background introduction. So China is now experiencing an increasing yield production, but this is largely secured by large inputs of resources, especially the fertilizer. As a consequence, actually, they cause a lot of the severe environmental pollution, including the water pollution, air pollution, and also soil pollution. For example, the soil acidification. Actually, soil acidification now is very severe in China, especially in the south part of China, which is very severe. So the soil acidification actually can lead to the aluminum, manganese toxicity, and also calcium deficiency. Therefore, actually, they will have severe impact on the food products, the quality. And with these challenges, actually, the Chinese people now actually is experiencing a severe nutrition problems. We call it too much and also too little coexist. So too much carbohydrates we call the rich man diseases like high blood pressure, and also too little of the micronutrients. That leads to the hidden hunger. So another challenge is soil degradation. So about 70% of the cropland in China actually is medium and low yield croplands. So a lot of these constraints for that to further increase the yield. And therefore, our group leader, Professor Fu Zhang, is now leading the transformation of agriculture to green development. That means we need to further increase the yield to meet the increasing demand of population, and also decreasing the inputs, for example, the nitrogen inputs, and then as consequent, they will decrease the nitrogen losses, enhance the fertilizer use efficiency. Then we'll reach to this agriculture green development. So in this group, actually, I'm working on the sustainable cropping system. So firstly, we need to understand the mechanism between the interactions between the plant, soils, microorganisms, and also insects. Based upon these principles, we need to design the diversified cropping system, for example, intercropping, rotation. And then with this, we would like to deliver more ecosystem multifunctionality. And we would like to highlight our recent research. So we need to make best use of the crop genotypes. For example, if we can use the phosphorus efficient genotypes, then we can design the phosphorus efficient cropping systems that could also sequester carbon in the soil, which mitigating the climate change. And in addition, actually, maize-based intercropping, especially produced in China, produced 4 times as grain yield as high as intercropping system in low input agriculture, mostly outside of China. So we often call it the happy together systems. And we summarize all those knowledge advances into this special issue in these frontiers in agriculture, science, and engineering. This special issue called the Sustainable Crop and Pasture Systems, and edited by Professor Hans Lambers and me. So you are welcome to have more further look on this special issue. So another point is from the consumption side that we really need to think of the humans diet, the human consumption, let them to drive the supply chain construction. I think this is something we would like to join attention to this. The last point we'll highlight is the future opportunities is we need to have more research on this core series and beans, which is very helpful for our health, resource uses, and also a very environmental sustainability. And we also would like to promote the consumers to take more whole grains, which is have better nutrients, and with less processing, that will also better for the environment. So with this, we would like to thank you and hope to have more discussions later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Song. There's so much connectivity between what you're all presenting here. It's really exciting and important work. Next, we'll go to Dr. Amlan Das Gupta from OP Jindal Global University.
Hi, thank you so much for having me in this platform. This is fantastic. I'm basically an associate professor here at the School of Banking and Finance. And I'd like to talk to you about what we've been working on for the past 3 or 4 years, which is the sustainability of the milk producing sector in India. Now, milk production is associated with livestock rearing, and livestock rearing, as many of you would know, is also associated with enteric emission of methane gas, which is basically the main concern that we have. For most parts of the world, the main concern is with meat producing farms. In India, of course, we don't have that problem because of social and religious reasons. But we do produce a lot of methane, and the main driver of this is milk and the demand for milk. So we published a study a couple of years back where we showed that if you take into account the rise in demand for milk, then the growth rate of methane emissions in India is probably going to be more than double of what conventional estimates are going to tell you. So it is, and it has the potential of becoming a serious problem. We also show that if we are able to somehow change the composition of the livestock in India from more indigenous breeds to crossbred animals, then we can actually achieve the same growth in milk production with minimal increase in methane. Now, so this seems to be a win-win situation because crossbred animals are also produce much more milk. They have almost 5 to 6 times higher milk yield than indigenous breeds. So it should make economic sense. However, in India, crossbreeding is very unpopular. So around 10 to 15% of the livestock is actually crossbred, in spite of consistent efforts by the government to promote this. So this is the mystery that we are basically trying to address. So I am an economist, and to think about the main challenges here, firstly is data. We would like to understand if there are any resources that we can tap to actually look at costs and benefits of adopting crossbreeding across the country. And the second thing that we would like to have inputs from, and we'd like help from anybody really, which is that in India, the animals are reared by households. So every household would have 1 or 2 animals. And for them to think about an economic decision is probably not the right way to go about it. So there are social, cultural reasons for holding cattle. In many cases, we don't even see positive rate of return for holding animals, but people still hold that. So we need to understand this from a more multidimensional perspective. So let me stop there, and let me tell you a little bit about the university. And so we are a young university, so we've been around for around 13 years, but this is a topic which is taken seriously throughout the university. There is a School of Environment and Sustainability which leads the effort for opportunity Global University. And of course, there are other researchers and research centers strewn around all over the university. So we have people working in the business school, in liberal arts school, as well as in the public policy school. So all of these resources are there, and we would love to have more collaborations, and we're looking forward to interactions here. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. Wonderful. Next, we'll go to Dr. Gloria Sophie from University of Ghana.
Hello, everybody. I'm trying to share my screen now. Can you see my screen?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So thank you. And my name is Gloria Sophie. I am a senior lecturer in the Department of Crop Science in the University of Ghana, and also the team lead for the Agri-Food Systems and Nutrition in the West Africa Center for Crop Improvement. So to make up for the 3 minutes, I will quickly talk about what I do. And my area is mainly on post-harvest technology and food safety. And so my work looks more at the horticultural sector. If you know anything about Ghana or even Africa or in most developing countries, you do find out that post-harvest loss is a big issue. In Ghana, we can have up to like 50% in quantity loss for some of our horticultural produce. So my work is looking at how we can use low-cost adaptive technology to extend the shelf life of such fresh produce. The other area is looking at wastewater irrigated vegetables. Again, in Ghana, there is not enough potable water for irrigation. So for these urban and peri-urban farmers, they tend to use a lot of wastewater in irrigating produce, which obviously has a lot of public health concern when it comes to the safety of the food. So that's an area that I also look at. So currently, I've done a lot of work in this area, but currently what I'm doing is looking at using some of our locally available materials as edible coating on horticultural produce to see whether we can extend the shelf life. And some of these materials I've used are beeswax, cassava starch, neem oil, and these have shown some promising results, and we are hoping to be able to improve on the results we got so far. Currently, also, we are doing some work with, it's a collaboration between the University of Pretoria, University of Nairobi, and the University of Ghana, and it's under the Aroa Center of Excellence for Sustainable Food Systems, which Ghana is also a partner investing in that. And what we are doing is we do acknowledge that there are a lot of technologies available to be able to reduce post-harvest losses or improve the system, but these are all sort of scattered around. So what we are doing is we are trying to take stock of these practices and technologies and try to put up a database which various people can go to and find solutions for the various problems they have. This project is still going. It's under the CAP Foods project, capacity building for food composition data. So that's what we are doing now in collaboration. In terms of food safety, it's a big issue because, of course, if it's potable water, trying to get potable water for the farmers to use is almost very difficult. So we are focusing our research more on trying to see what can be done to educate people so that they may do better. And so right now we are collaborating. There's a collaboration between private, public, CSOs. We all come together and we have sponsorship from SNV, which is a Netherlands company, and we are developing intervention materials. Now, this is work in progress. This is very fresh. Of course, there are still issues here when people are washing with water and food in the bowls and stuff. We are still improving on those. So we hope to be able to do this and share this to all the stakeholders along the value chain so that we can improve on food safety. Now, when it comes to what we are doing in the institution, I represent the West Africa Center for Crop Improvement. This is one institution in University of Ghana that is focused on sustainable food systems. And we try to look at the whole value chain. So we have experts working in pre-breeding and trait discovery, looking at the production aspect. And then we have those who are looking at variety development and commercialization of these varieties that they develop. And then the area that this theme that I lead is agri-food systems and nutrition. So we also have a lot of people looking into that. And then we go into policy, markets, and impact. And we have all these people. As you can see underneath there are different types of different experts in one area. So we try to make sure that we are all looking at this together. Now, regarding the transforming of our food system, we do realize that I have come to realize that post-harvest technology is one that is not usually looked at. We tend to look a lot more at production and how to get more food, especially for our parts of the world, where we don't look at what happens to the food after it is produced. So I think that looking at an interdisciplinary approach to actually solving this problem would be great, and integrating post-harvest technology would be a good way to go. Thank you very much. Let me stop here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sophie. That was really interesting, and again, so many opportunities for collaboration. Next, we'll go to Dr. Chunli Shi from Shanghai Jiaotong University.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Let me share the screen first. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. First, okay. Thank you for inviting inviting me to be here to attend the Salon on Sustainable Agri-Food System and sorry. And I would like to introduce something about our department, the Department of Food Science and Engineering in Shanghai Jiao Tong University. The research orientations in our department, sorry, something wrong. Our research mainly surrounded life, living, and production. So the first part is about how to prevent, to control the bio or chemical hazard. So the first orientation is for the safety. The second part is about the public health. So we will focus on the food nutrition. And for the third and for the fourth part, for the production of green food. So the food innovation, innovations and the food engineering are the other two orientations. So for me, I mainly work on the food safety. So the first is about the characterization and the risk assessment of foodborne pathogenic bacteria. So we did a lot to develop the a series of molecular detection methods for pathogens, especially for the serotyping of Salmonella. So so for this, based on this method, we have identified a lot of bacteria to get to build up collections and the related database, and to do some risk assessment for this bacteria. And the second is the prevalence and persistence of the pathogenic bacteria in food system. For this part, we do a lot of to try to find out the mechanism on the biofilm formation and how to control the biofilm. So we have established a mutant library to find the new function genes and regulators and the networks related to the biofilm formation attributed to oxidation response. And then based on this research, we have now trying to screen and evaluate some novel antibiofilms, such as the nanoparticles, natural plant extracts, and the small molecules. So that's for biofilm. And the second part is for the antimicrobial resistance. So you know the antimicrobial is quite important and is threatening the public health. So we did a lot to find the distribution of the antimicrobial resistant genes and try to find some more mobile genetic elements related to the formation of the antimicrobial resistance, and to find the integrons and the insertion sequences, and to evaluate how they can transfer among different bacteria. And then we try to establish the mobilum mediated MDR, a multi-drug resistant mechanism. And based on this mechanism, we can make the policy related to the prevention and the control of antimicrobial resistance. So we also have some research centers related to the food safety, such as most USDA Joint Research Center for Food Safety and the Shanghai Engineering Research Center for Food Safety, the Blue Food Safety Center and Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition. That's the research center. So we have very vivid international collaborations with a lot of international institutions. So so hope in the future we can collaborate a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shi. Next, we'll move to Dr. Selene Escobar Ramirez from Universidad San Francisco de Quito.
Hello. Okay, good morning, everybody. Just let me share my screen, please. Let's see. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen right now?
Yes, thank you.
Great. So just check on the time. So hello, everybody. I just want to introduce myself as a biologist from the Universidad San Francisco de Quito. We are in Ecuador, in the capital city. So I'm working in the faculty or in the College of Environmental Science, Biology and Environmental Sciences. But we have been addressing some topics related with food security and sustainable sustainable food sources. We are still we have like two main small initiatives, but we are growing thanks to the interdisciplinary group we have in the university. So we are collaborating with different college inside our university. So we are collaborating with the Polytechnic, which is like the engineering school, with the Museum of Zoology. Also, we have this consortium, the Galapagos Science Center with the UNC University. So we have a facility in the archipelago where we are developing research related with ecology and marine biology, but also we are paying attention on what is happening in the highlands regarding agriculture, regarding food security in the highlands. And we also have this amazing biological station at the Tipitini, which is the most diverse place, in the world, in the whole planet. It has been recognized by being like the most diverse place in the earth. So you are welcome to come and visit us. Just to let you know, like a general image of what is happening. So we have like the mainland. Okay, we have Ecuador in the continent, but we also have the archipelago in Galapagos. And so we are like facing these two approaches, like trying to assess how it's the food security on the archipelago. From the different islands, four of them are inhabited islands developing agriculture. They're facing many challenges to grow food in the middle of a national park. So they have a lot of restrictions, and they have a high dependence from the mainland for bringing like inputs, food itself, and so many other tools they need to develop agriculture. So it's so we are like trying to address how is food security in the inhabited islands. Try to think about what is the right way to do agriculture in this complex context, and also trying to assess the effects of the COVID, how the COVID exposed the high vulnerability of the people living in the archipelago, and looking for some solutions which are like synchronized with the situation of the archipelago. So it's fast, it happened fast. So in the second part, just want to show you like we are like trying to explore alternative sources of protein, and we are focusing on arthropods as a source not only of protein, but so as a source of other functional components that these animals can gain from the plants they eat. So just think about like we are one of the most diverse countries in the world. So we have a high diversity of plants, which means a lot of potential functional compounds, and then we have the arthropods that are like bioaccumulating these compounds in their bodies, and also converting protein and accumulating in their tissue. So they have this high protein conversion rate compared with other conventional sources of protein. Just to let you know that this entomophagy is becoming one of like an alternative and sustainable source of protein mainly, and other functional compounds. So we are exploring two of our most famous species regarding the nutritional composition, but this time using the methodologies used for assessing the same aspects in other sources of protein. So one of the information gaps is the lack of this that we are in the past, like we don't have so many studies using the standards used for conventional food protein. So we wanted to do it in a really small project we are just developing right now and looking for these functional bioactive compounds. So this is the team we are working on with the engineer college, the museum, and the College for Environmental Science. And here are Dr. Jose Miguel Alvarez, who is the leading researcher for this project, and Melanie Nunez, our student. Here you can see the two species we are working on. This is the white catso, which is a beetle from the Andes. People just roast it and eat it as a popcorn. And here we have the larvae of this weevil, which is Rhincophorum palmarum. The common name is Chontacuro, and we have been assessing this is like the two main objectives this project is looking for: nutritional characterization and identification of the main bioactive compounds. And this is so far what we have been recording, like a high content of fats in this larvae of the weevil, with a high content of protein compared with other more well-known arthropods. And so here we have more fats, and with the catso we have high content of protein and similar content of fats. And these compared with conventional sources of protein, we notice how these two endemic species could be like a promising source of this alternative protein source. And we also register the presence of functional nutrients in terms of phenols, gallic acid, and we register antioxidant capacity. And we need to still looking forward for what these results means, and still working on the potential of these arthropods as a source of protein and other functional compounds. Thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to make like a really good networking, to find opportunities for collaboration, and to and also for our students to get like trained in more of these and more of these techniques, and also we want to include the other component, which is market social acceptation or receptivity of this kind of new food sources, and estimate how this could be like how these alternative protein sources could be like a real alternative to address the problem of food security in our continent and the archipelago. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Escobar. Next, we'll go to Dr. Thurston Warland from the National University of Singapore.
Thank you, Rachel, and let me thank you very much to invite me to this very fascinating salon or forum. So my name is Thurston Warland. I'm from the National University of Singapore. I'm a biophysicist, and I'm working on single molecule fluorescence spectroscopy, which raises a question why I am here. That's for two reasons. The first one is actually I've been working in the past on plant stress peptides or stress response peptides to investigate how plants react to drought and cold, and how to make them resistant against stress. The second, probably more important thing, is that since the beginning of the year, I am involved in helping the university to organize our smart urban farming initiatives. So to give you a little bit of a background, Singapore has started a so-called 30 by 30 initiative, and that is aimed at producing 30% of our nutritional needs by 2030. To get this off the ground, we have actually government agencies, we have universities, polytechnic institutes, and industry, startups, and large collaborations with international universities, which have started in the last, well, 1 to 2 years to address this issue. And we're trying to address at least 3 intertwined problems. The one is food safety and security. You have heard that already by Dr. Sophie as well as by Professor Shi about the importance of shelf life and food safety. Then, of course, sustainability is the second one, and the last one is the new food sources. And I think that is actually very important to realize, as Ajahn Chaleeda already mentioned, but as well just Dr. Escobar, that we have local foods, right, which could actually solve problems in other places, and the experts sit really locally, and that makes I think this interaction between us actually very, very important. And I like as well these ideas of databases for exchange of information, collection of information. I think that's as well something we could actually very much work on. Now, to give you a little bit of an idea what we're working on, I'm going to give you right now a couple of links in the chat. We have several different institutes we created. So the first link is just an outline of the general approach of NUS and how we're trying to address the issue of smart urban farming. The second link is about our smart urban farming research center. It focuses on sustainable urban farming with a core team we have people from science, engineering, computing. And we're trying to cover actually different ranges of domains from plant science, genomics, gene editing, microbiomes, food science, materials and polymer science, especially for shelf life extension, for example, sensor technology, and data science and AI. So it's actually quite comprehensive. The next institute, unlike the first one, SURF, which actually looks at basic research, the next one is our NUS Architect Center. That is actually kind of what you would call probably an innovative sandpit for researchers and for entrepreneurs to look actually at challenges and actually explore market-based solutions. The next and the last center I'm going to present, that is what we call CREATE. That is a campus for research excellence and technological enterprise. And that is actually our international hub where we interact together with different universities. We have universities, we have ETH, MIT, we have Cambridge, we have, I think, Tsinghua University. So we have actually universities from all over the world coming to Singapore and working to us on very defined problems. And I'll invite you to take a look at that and contact us as well if there are interests of further collaborations. And with that, thank you very much for giving me the time, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the talks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Warland. Really important in the way in which we're seeing these interactions across the various presentations. Next, we'll go to Dr. Carol Dolan from University College London.
Hello, thank you very much for having me. I think you can see the screen. Let me know if it's full screen. Okay, I see some nodding. Thanks. So good morning or afternoon, everyone. So my name is Carol Dolan, and yeah, thanks again for the opportunity to discuss with you my team's research, which uses interdisciplinary modeling to help achieve healthy and sustainable food systems, and also to discuss collaboration opportunities in this area, sustainable food systems and development. So very quickly, I'll talk about my team's research, then some projects for collaborations, and finally some topics for discussion on future research agenda. So my team's research is basically on environmental sustainability of food systems at the global scale, and we are particularly interested in water resources, as well as water quality, so mainly pollution from fertilizers, climate change, and biodiversity. So I'm not expecting you to read what is there, but that's just to recognize that this is team's work, and that there is also another new PhD student that hasn't made it to this nice graphic yet, whose name is Gideon, and working on trade from West Africa to the UK. So this is our kind of research area. Sorry, I'm struggling a bit because, okay, the videos are hiding my screen and then not allowing me to switch slide. Okay, here we go. So this is in terms of initiatives and opportunities to get involved. I wanted to talk briefly about this upcoming project, which is called Flora, has been funded under the ERC, so the European Research Council Starting Grant Scheme. And there are three major goals. So the first one is to develop improved metrics of food sustainability and to integrate them with nutritional metrics. So basically combining the supply side and the demand side, and have this at a high resolution for each product. The second objective is to evaluate how the system evolved over time and what's the impact on the environmental objectives have been, to find some trends and potential strengths and weaknesses in the system. So that's an example of my research where we looked at food trade, but just the unsustainable irrigation based on unsustainable use of groundwater. So this is showing, for example, that Pakistan is reliant on unsustainable groundwater to produce rice, but that also affects all its trade partners who import rice from this country. So this is some kind of systemic analysis we want to do. And finally, and that's also where the huge range of disciplines involved is expanding even further, which is to try to find, after having identified those problems and looked at the synergies and trade-offs, try to test some solutions at the more local scale, more targeted, and evaluate how we can basically optimize both nutrition and environmental protection. So that requires biophysical sciences like we've done in my team, but also socioeconomic modeling and sciences. Another initiative that I wanted to flag is the UK Food System CDT. So you can look at the website, and there are more than 8 universities that host PhD students on this team, including UCL. And I'm accelerating. There is also the Chefs Project, which is coming to an end next year, but meaning that we will be looking for the next stage of this kind of research, which is an international and interdisciplinary collaboration funded by Welcome. So please get in touch if you're interested. And I'll just, I won't read those, but basically some key questions for future collaboration and some themes, so resilience and I think the role of political ecology for vulnerable communities will be important to account for. Thank you.
Wonderful. Those are some questions we will certainly be returning to in the Q&A, how to effectively transition. Thank you so much, Dr. Dalin. Last, we'll turn to Dr. Marina Welker from Cornell University.
Thank you. And first, I owe special thanks to the organizers for including me in this conversation on sustainable agri-food systems, since I currently focus on tobacco, which is neither sustainable nor food. My research is located in Indonesia, which is the world's 2nd largest cigarette market, despite having only the world's 4th largest population. Smoking is a hegemonic feature of adult masculinity in Indonesia, with 2/3 of men smoking and only a small percentage of women. The Indonesian market is distinguished not only by gender polarization, but also by the fact that 95% of smokers smoke clove-laced cigarettes called kretek, and only 5% smoke so-called white cigarettes. To expand its foothold in this unusual market, in 2005, Philip Morris International acquired a clove cigarette company called Sampurna for $5 billion. Since then, it has claimed roughly 1/3 of the market. Before COVID hit, it was selling over 100 billion cigarettes to Indonesians each year. I took a commodity-centered approach to studying Sampurna that moved from the cultivation of tobacco and clove plants to the manufacturing of hand-rolled and machine-rolled kretek in factories, brand marketing through promotional events, social media, and influencer recruitment, the ubiquitous distribution of cigarettes through chain and independent retailers, and finally, the consumption of cigarettes. Throughout, I've been interested in the question of how Philip Morris keeps people attached to a commodity that is not very good for them. Tobacco is unsustainable in many ways, including for farmers. It demands high inputs of fertilizers, pesticides, suckercides, and carbon-emitting fuel sources when it's flue-cured. Farmers who grow it tend to be more impoverished and reliant on government aid than non-tobacco growing peers. In Indonesia, most have the option of producing other crops, and many have sworn off tobacco or reduced how much they plant. Companies like Philip Morris actively work to tighten their hold over tobacco farmers through contract farming. At the same time, Philip Morris envisions a post-tobacco future, and for decades now has reduced the amount of tobacco required in each cigarette stick by puffing it through the gas and freeze-drying procedure and by reconstituting it from pulp of stems and dust that would have once been waste. The next generation question already upon many Indonesian tobacco farmers is how they will continue to negotiate the terms of their exploitation or extricate themselves from tobacco entirely. Organizations involved in studying and addressing this issue include the World Bank, the Indonesian branch of the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, and the large reformist religious organization Muhammadiyah, which issued a fatwa declaring cigarettes haram or prohibited in 2010 and runs the Muhammadiyah Tobacco Control Center out of its Yogyakarta campus. I'll conclude there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marina, and to all of our participants. So there are so many points of connection, and we have a few minutes to address questions that you've asked in your own presentations. And I invite the audience to put your questions, and for those of you who are colleagues and doing related work, to put your center links and the like into the Q&A function so that we can share them with all participants after this salon. I want to start by raising a question that several of you have posed, which is to take up Dr. Sophie's point about the increasing populations, the need to increase food production, and yet the questions of sustainability and how to effectively transition that many of you have taken up in different forms. So I was wondering how we can, to in part to Dr. Alexander's point, bring together this question of mitigation and adaptation, bring together the need for increase of production while limiting the costs of such production to our planet and to our human and other species well-being. So I'm wondering, if we can turn back to those questions that you've all raised about how we can potentially, move forward in blue sky territory. Which technologies, ideas, hypotheses do you think are most productive or most exciting about to be able to address this space in between all of these paradoxes? And anyone can jump in and raise their hand. We've heard a few thoughts about collaboration, databases, using different types of locally available food sources, from insects to various options. So any immediate reactions? Yes, Dr. Alexander.
I can give you a reaction, not so much an answer. So you kind of almost didn't quite, but you moved towards framing it as there being a technological solution, and so my reaction is against that, to say that it's not really a question of developing a new widget, or in fact changing production. It's all of the above, but I think it has to be focused more on changing consumer behavior and changing what we eat rather than how we produce what we eat. Or to put another way, there is plenty of food in the global food system for everybody to have a healthy diet, to have sufficient food. But there's a lot of inequality in that system, which means some people eat too much, some people don't have enough food, and when we kind of use a lot of that food rather inefficiently. So those are the sort of the some of the reactions. That's not really an answer to your question of how do we achieve those things. But it was a reaction to the way you framed the question.
That's incredibly helpful, and it ties in with our earlier salon on inequalities in a very important way, in which some of our participants there were also working in agricultural or development sustainable spaces in that line of work. So I think that's a really important intervention. Other reactions? Yes, please, Dr. Warland.
I actually had almost the same reaction as Peter right now. I think shelf life extension reduction of waste will go a long way actually to reduce actually the requirement for growing even more food. So, and these are to some extent lower hanging fruits, because you don't need an invention for that. You need consumer behavior changes. And I found this very interesting what Marina just talked about in terms of cigarettes, right? There's one thing where people, you don't want them to do it. They do it all the time, right? And now we want basically kind of something similar for the avoidance of wastage. I mean, if some of that, you know, consumer behavior, this consumer psychology could be used to bring them to waste less food, that would be great.
Absolutely, and that really ties into Dr. Chabala's points as well about how we can use locally sourced products like beeswax and the like to potentially improve shelf life and transportability and the like. Yes, Dr. Chen.
Yeah, I'm very much agree that a dietary change shift is critical, and reduce the food loss and waste is also very important. But at the same time, I also want to put some emphasis on new technology. That's also going to be key. And new technology certainly help to address the food security issue in humans' history, but we probably need a new orientation to our research and development system, oriented our research agriculture R&D towards green, towards healthy food technologies. I think that's probably going to be also very critical to address the challenge we have.
Absolutely. And one of the interesting things I see an intersection in your comments between fertilizers and uptake of fertilizers and the right quantity of fertilizer on what type of soil and land, and the ways in which that's a technology and an intervention, and yet also has these other consequences for water and soil pollutants and air quality and the like. So I think, you know, that question that you raise about technologies are also what types and how they're used in terms of the psychology. Dr. Sophie.
Yes, just to add to everything else, I agree to everything else, but not bad. I also think that we could be looking at the markets, looking at the post-harvest aspects where I focus. You find out that, like I said earlier, there's a lot of focus on the production, but very little focus on what happens after the production, at least in our parts of the world. And so I think that to make this, to be able to transform our food systems, apart from producing great varieties and ensuring everything, there should be good markets. We should look into the markets, how to be able to get this out there. And that all come into the processing, the preservation and all that, but also looking at how to get the foods, how to market the produce, because there's no point in producing good quality foods and not being able to send it out, which would increase the income of the smallholder farmers and all that. So that should all be part of the equation.
Absolutely, such important points. We are going to end by thanking you all for your expertise. This has been an incredibly rich conversation, and we will stay in touch through email. Again, for our audience, please do put your information in the Q&A so we can share this back out with you in terms of the slides and the links. And we'll continue to look for opportunities for collaboration across these Global Hub partners. Thank you so much.